The morning started like any other for Frank Bennett. He poured his coffee, stepped onto his porch, and looked up at the clear blue sky. At 62, the retired Navy commander enjoyed these peaceful moments. But peace, as Frank knew from 30 years of military service, never lasted forever. His phone rang. It was a government number. "Bennett," he answered, his voice rough from years of giving orders on naval vessels. "Commander, this is Admiral Kelly. Turn on your television." Frank went inside and switched on the news. The coffee mug slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor. Thousands of strange ships had appeared in Earth's orbit. They were enormous, each one bigger than an aircraft carrier. Their hulls gleamed with a metal humans had never seen before. They formed a perfect circle around the planet, not attacking, just watching. "We need you back, Frank," Admiral Kelly said through the phone. "Right now." Across the country, Professor Olivia Martinez rubbed her tired eyes. The physics department at Western State University had been analyzing the signals from the alien ships for 12 hours straight, while her colleagues focused on the main broadcast, a repeated message in an unknown language. Olivia noticed something else, a pattern in the background noise. "There's structure here," she whispered to herself, scribbling equations on her notepad. "It's not random static." Her department head, Dr. Wells, looked over her shoulder. "What are you talking about, Martinez?" "The aliens aren't just talking to us through their main message," she said, pointing to her computer screen. "There's a second layer of communication happening between their ships, and I think I can crack it." At the Pentagon, chaos reigned. Military leaders from around the world joined emergency video calls. Fighters' jets had been launched. Missiles had been fired. Nothing worked. The weapons either exploded harmlessly against invisible shields or simply disappeared before impact. Frank walked into the Joint Chiefs conference room, still wearing jeans and a flannel shirt. No one commented on his casual clothes. "What do we know?" he asked. General Harris pointed to the main screen. "They call themselves the Nilari Confederation. 7 alien species working together. They sent this message an hour ago." The screen showed a tall, thin creature with blue-gray skin and 4 arms. It spoke in perfect English. "People of Earth, we have studied your broadcasts, your movies, your wars, your history. You are too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous to join galactic society. For the safety of all civilized worlds, you will remain quarantined. Any attempt to send vessels beyond low Earth orbit will be stopped. This is not negotiable." The room fell silent. "They've cut us off from space," Admiral Kelly said. "The International Space Station has been allowed to continue operation, but nothing goes up, nothing comes down." Frank stared at the screen. "They've been watching us for a long time to learn our languages this well. Can we fight them?" asked a Russian general through the video link. "With what?" Frank replied. "They're so far beyond us technologically that our best weapons didn't even scratch them." That night, as the world's cities lit up with riots and prayer vigils, Olivia Martinez had her breakthrough. She'd been running the alien background signals through various algorithms when her computer suddenly displayed a clear pattern. "My God," she gasped. "It's a schedule." She grabbed her phone and called the emergency hotline the government had established for scientific insights. "This is Professor Olivia Martinez from Western State University," she said. "I need to speak to whoever is in charge of analyzing the alien blockade. I found something important." The next morning, a military helicopter landed on the university's football field. 2 soldiers escorted Olivia to the aircraft, where she found Commander Frank Bennett waiting. "Professor Martinez," he said, extending his hand. "I hear you've discovered something about our unwelcome visitors." "Yes," she replied, clutching her laptop bag. "I think I've found their weakness." As the helicopter lifted off, Olivia looked down at her university becoming smaller below. The Nilari thought humans were too dangerous for space. They were about to learn why. 2 weeks after the aliens appeared, The United Earth Defense Council met for the first time. Leaders from nations that had been enemies for decades now sat side by side in an underground bunker beneath Geneva. Frank Bennett stood at the front of the room beside Admiral Kelly, watching as former rivals shook hands. "Never thought I'd see the day," Frank muttered. "Nothing brings people together like a common enemy," the Admiral replied. When the room quieted, Frank stepped forward. "The Nilari blockade consists of 3 layers of ships," he explained, pointing to a large screen showing telescope images. "The outer layer has the largest vessels. We call them Watchers. The middle layer has faster, smaller ships, the Hunters. The inner layer has thousands of tiny drones, the Strikers." A Chinese general raised his hand. "Have we tried to communicate with them?" "Every day," Frank answered. "They respond with the same message. Earth is quarantined indefinitely." "What about a coordinated missile strike?" asked an American senator. "We tried that 3 days ago," Admiral Kelly said. "India, Russia, China, and the United States launched simultaneously. The missiles never reached their targets. They simply disappeared." Frank nodded to a technician who changed the screen image. "Which brings me to our team. I've assembled experts from various fields to find a way through the blockade." The screen showed photographs and names. Dr. Olivia Martinez, physics. She discovered patterns in the Nilari communication system. Steve Rodriguez, former NASA engineer. He's analyzing their technology. And others with expertise in various fields relevant to our mission. In the newly established Earth Defense Headquarters, Steve Rodriguez examined a small piece of metal under a microscope. "Where did you get this?" he asked Olivia, who stood beside him. "It's debris from a small Nilari drone that malfunctioned over the Pacific," she explained. "Our ships recovered it before the aliens could." Steve adjusted the microscope. "The molecular structure is unlike anything I've seen. It seems to change when exposed to different frequencies of light." Olivia smiled. "That's why I wanted you to see it. I think their technology responds to specific energy patterns." Their work was interrupted when Frank entered the lab. "How's it going?" "We're making progress," Olivia said. "The Nilari may be advanced, but they're not magical. They follow rules, scientific principles we can understand." Frank nodded. "Good. But I need results faster. Yesterday, they stopped 3 commercial satellites from launching. Companies are losing billions. People are starting to panic." "There's something else," Steve added, turning his computer screen toward Frank. "I've been tracking their ship movements. They rotate positions every 12 hours, following a strict pattern." Frank looked closer at the screen. "A pattern means predictability, and predictability means vulnerability." That night, as Olivia worked late in the lab, she noticed something odd in the Nilari communications she'd been monitoring. "Computer, play back the last hour of transmissions, but filter out the main channels," she said. The speakers emitted strange clicking sounds with musical undertones. "Cross-reference with known mathematical sequences," she instructed. The computer displayed a match. The alien communications followed precise mathematical rules. Olivia quickly called Frank and Steve. "I think I know why they quarantined us," she said when they arrived. "Listen to this." She played a recording of human radio broadcasts alongside the Nilari communications. "Our signals are chaotic, creative, unpredictable," she explained. "Theirs follow rigid patterns. I believe the Nilari are a highly structured society. They fear what they can't predict." Steve nodded slowly. "And humans are nothing if not unpredictable." "It's not just our violence they fear," Frank realized. "It's our creativity." "Exactly," Olivia said. "And that gives us an advantage. They won't expect solutions that don't follow logical patterns." Frank stared at the data on the screen. "So we need to think outside the box." "Way outside," Steve agreed. Olivia pointed to her calculations. "I've been working on a theory. If their ships and technology respond to specific energy patterns, We might be able to disrupt their systems using Earth's satellite network. Frank looked at his team with the first spark of hope he'd felt since the blockade began. How soon can you test this theory? Give us 1 week, Olivia said confidently. As Frank left the lab, he gazed up at the night sky through a window. The Nilari ships were visible as tiny points of light among the stars. They thought they had humans trapped. They were about to learn how dangerous a trapped human could be. 3 months into the Nilari blockade, Earth began to feel the strain. Ships couldn't leave the planet with cargo. Space mining operations had stopped. Rare materials needed for advanced electronics grew scarce. In cities around the world, people stood in long lines for basic goods. Governments rationed fuel and food. The initial fear had turned to anger. At Earth Defense Headquarters, Frank studied the latest reports with a grim face. Admiral Kelly joined him, looking equally worried. The global economy is in trouble, Frank said. We need a breakthrough soon. That's why I'm here, Kelly replied. The Defense Council wants an update on your team's progress. Frank led the Admiral to the lab where Olivia and Steve had worked day and night for weeks. The room was filled with equipment, computer screens, and empty coffee cups. Show him, Frank said to Olivia. She nodded and tapped on her keyboard. A large screen displayed an animation of the Nilari blockade. We've confirmed that the aliens rotate their ships every 12 hours, she explained. But we discovered something important. During rotation, there's a brief window, about 3 minutes, when their coverage is reduced by nearly 30% here. She pointed to an area above the North Atlantic. Could we slip a ship through during that window? Admiral Kelly asked. Steve shook his head. Not yet. Their sensors would still detect us. But we're working on that too. He led them to a table where a strange device hummed softly. This is a prototype disruptor based on Olivia's research. It mimics the energy patterns we found in Nilari communications. When we tested it on the debris from their drone, Olivia continued, it temporarily shut down their systems. Frank allowed himself a small smile. In other words, we might be able to blind them. For how long? Kelly asked. Right now, only for about 20 seconds at close range, Steve admitted. But we're improving it every day. We need it to work for at least 3 minutes, Frank said, and at a much greater distance. Olivia nodded. We're modifying Earth's satellite network to amplify the signal. If it works, we could create a blind spot during the rotation window. Admiral Kelly looked impressed. How soon? 2 weeks, Steve said. Maybe less. Later that night, Frank found Olivia alone in the lab, staring at data on her screen. You should get some sleep, he told her. She rubbed her tired eyes. I'm close to something. The Nilari use a type of quantum encryption in their communications. If we could break it, we might learn more about them. Any luck? Not yet, but I found something strange. She pointed to her screen. Their messages mention Earth more frequently now. And there's a new word that keeps appearing. What word? Deviant. Olivia looked up at Frank. I think they're afraid of us because we don't fit their understanding of how intelligent species should behave. Frank considered this. Can we use that fear against them? Before Olivia could answer, Steve burst into the lab, his face excited. I did it, he exclaimed. I boosted the disruptor range by linking it to the military satellite network. We can now affect their systems from a distance of 500 miles. Frank's radio crackled. Admiral Kelly's voice came through. Bennett, get to the command center. The Nilari just destroyed a small rocket launched from a private facility in New Zealand. They're broadcasting a message. In the command center, they watched the alien transmission. The blue-gray Nilari commander appeared angrier than in previous messages. People of Earth, it said, your attempt to violate the quarantine has been stopped. Further violations will result in stronger measures. You cannot escape. Accept your confinement. Frank turned to Olivia and Steve. They're getting nervous. They know we're not giving up. And they don't understand why. Olivia added, Their society values order and predictability. Our persistence, despite impossible odds, makes no logical sense to them. Frank nodded. Let's use that. Admiral, I need to speak to the Defense Council. I have a plan. For the first time since the blockade began, a dangerous hope filled the room. The Nilari thought their technology made them invincible. They were about to learn that humans performed best when victory seemed impossible. The United Earth Defense Council meeting was tense. Representatives from 23 countries sat around a large table, listening to Frank's plan. Operation Pathfinder, Frank said, pointing to screens showing detailed diagrams. We send one ship through the blockade during the rotation window, using our new disruption technology to create a blind spot in their sensors. One ship? Asked the Russian representative. What can one ship accomplish? We don't need a battle fleet, Frank explained. We need a messenger, someone to find other civilizations out there who might help us against the Nilari. Heated debate filled the room. Some wanted to surrender to the aliens. Others wanted to build weapons. Finally, Admiral Kelly stood up. Enough, he shouted. We've tried fighting. We've tried talking. This plan gives us a chance to change the game. I vote yes. One by one, the representatives voted. The final count. 15 yes, 8 no. Operation Pathfinder was approved. Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in a secret facility built before the blockade, Steve supervised modifications to the U.S. Defiant, a small, experimental spacecraft originally designed for Mars missions. We've installed the disruption system, he told Frank and Olivia as they toured the ship, and added stealth plating based on what we learned from the Nilari debris. The ship looked sleek and dangerous, its black hull absorbing light. Inside, engineers installed advanced equipment and supplies for a long journey. Who will command the mission? Olivia asked. Captain Lisa Ward, Frank replied. She's the best pilot we have. As if on cue, a woman in her 40s with short brown hair and determined eyes entered the hangar. She walked with confidence born from years of flying the most dangerous missions. Commander Bennett, she said, saluting Frank. My crew and I are ready. Frank nodded. This mission carries the hopes of 8 billion people, Captain. No pressure. Lisa smiled slightly. Just another day at the office. That evening, as final preparations were made, Steve approached Frank with concerning news. The Nilari have changed their patrol pattern, he said, showing data on his tablet. They've added more ships to the sector we planned to breach. Frank frowned. Did they detect our preparations? I don't think so, Olivia said, joining them. Their entire blockade has tightened. Something's made them nervous. Frank looked at the ship, now fully prepared for launch. Can we still make it through? Steve ran calculations on his tablet. The window is smaller, 90 seconds instead of 3 minutes, and we'll need more power for the disruption field. Can you do it? Frank asked. Steve hesitated, then nodded. Yes, but there's a catch. I need to be on the ship to manually adjust the disruptor during the breakthrough. The system is too complex to program for automatic operation. That's not the plan. Frank objected. You're too valuable to. Without me on board, Steve interrupted. The mission fails before it begins. Frank looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. Talk to Captain Ward. If she approves, you're on the crew. The night before launch, the crew of the U.S. Defiant gathered in the mess hall. 6 people who would attempt what many thought impossible, breaking through the most advanced blockade in human history. Lisa Ward stood before them. Tomorrow, we make history. If we succeed, we bring hope to Earth. If we fail, we won't fail, Steve said firmly. Each of you should record a message for your families, Lisa continued, just in case. Later, alone in her quarters, Lisa recorded her message. Mom, Dad, if you're watching this, I didn't make it back. But what we're doing matters. Humans don't belong in cages. We belong among the stars. In the engine room, Steve made final adjustments to the disruption system, pushing it beyond its tested limits. And in the command center, Frank, Olivia, and Admiral Kelly reviewed the launch sequence one last time. "Weather forecast for tomorrow?" Frank asked. "A massive geomagnetic storm," Olivia replied. "Perfect cover for launch." Frank nodded. "Then we're good to go. Operation Pathfinder launches at 600 hours. As the facility grew quiet for the night, the Nilari ships continued their silent watch above, unaware that humans had found their weakness and were about to exploit it. Morning came with flashes of green and blue dancing across the sky. The geomagnetic storm was stronger than predicted, sending waves of energy through Earth's atmosphere. In the command center, Frank and Olivia watched as lightning struck the ocean above their hidden facility. "Perfect cover," Frank said. "The storm will interfere with Nilari sensors even before we activate the disruption field." Olivia nodded, though her face showed concern. "The storm affects our systems too. Communications with the Defiant might be spotty once they launch." "Captain Ward knows what to do," Frank replied. "She doesn't need us holding her hand." In the launch bay, the crew of the U.S. Defiant made final preparations. Lisa Ward strapped herself into the pilot's seat, running through pre-launch checks with practiced efficiency. Beside her, her co-pilot, Joe Ramirez, monitored the ship's systems. In the engine room, Steve worked frantically, making last-minute adjustments to the disruption system. "How's it looking?" Lisa asked through the intercom. "Ready as it'll ever be," Steve replied. "But we'll only get one shot at this." Lisa addressed the entire crew. "This is it, people. In 5 minutes, we launch. In 15 minutes, we either make history or become a cautionary tale. Either way, Earth will remember what we tried to do here." The countdown reached 0. With a roar that shook the facility, the U.S. Defiant shot upward through the underwater launch tube. It burst from the ocean amid the storm's fury, water cascading off its black hull as it climbed rapidly toward the sky. In the command center, Olivia watched the tracking system. "They're away, climbing fast. No sign the Nilari have spotted them yet." The Defiant accelerated through the storm clouds, the ship vibrating as it pushed against Earth's gravity. Inside, warning lights flashed as systems strained under the pressure. Approaching the first layer, Joe announced. Lisa gripped the controls tightly. "Steve, status on the disruption field." In the engine room, Steve worked 3 control panels simultaneously. "Charging. 60 seconds to activation." On the main screen, they could now see the Nilari blockade, thousands of ships forming a web around the planet. The smallest ships, the strikers, moved in tight patterns, scanning constantly for escape attempts. 30 seconds to intercept, Joe warned. "Now, Steve." Lisa ordered. Steve slammed his hand down on a red button. The ship hummed as the disruption field activated, sending waves of energy outward. On their sensors, a section of the Nilari blockade flickered as their systems temporarily failed. "It's working," Steve shouted. "We've created a blind spot." Lisa pushed the engines to maximum. The Defiant shot toward the gap in the Nilari defenses, the ship groaning under the strain. Then disaster struck. A Nilari patrol ship appeared directly in their path, one that shouldn't have been there according to their intelligence. "Evasive maneuvers," Lisa shouted, yanking the controls. The Defiant swerved, nearly colliding with the alien vessel. The sudden move caused systems throughout the ship to surge. In the engine room, Steve watched in horror as the disruption field began to fail. "We're losing the field. The power coupling can't handle the strain." Making a split-second decision, Steve bypassed the safety systems and connected the main power directly to the disruptor. Warning alarms blared as he manually held the circuits closed, his hands burning from the heat. "Keep going," he shouted through gritted teeth. "I can hold it for 30 more seconds." Lisa pushed the ship harder, aiming for the narrowing gap in the blockade. The Nilari vessels were recovering, their systems coming back online. The window was closing. 10 seconds. Joe counted down. 9, 8, With a final burst of speed, the Defiant shot through the gap between two massive Nilari warships. Alarms screamed throughout the vessel as systems overloaded. In the engine room, Steve collapsed as circuits exploded around him. Then, suddenly, silence. Lisa looked at the view screen in awe. Behind them was the Nilari blockade. Before them, open space and freedom. "We did it," she whispered. "We broke through." The U.S. Defiant, damaged but intact, continued accelerating away from Earth, the first human ship to escape the alien encirclement. Back on Earth, cheers erupted in the command center as they received the confirmation signal. Frank allowed himself a brief smile before turning to Olivia. "Phase 1 complete," he said. "Now for the hard part." On their monitors, the Nilari ships had begun to move, tightening their formation even further. The blue-gray alien commander appeared on their screens, its 4 arms gesturing angrily. "Humans," it hissed, "you have violated the quarantine. Tell us how you breached our defenses." The U.S. Defiant drifted through unfamiliar space, its engines running at minimal power to avoid detection. Inside the medical bay, Steve lay unconscious, his hands wrapped in bandages. The ship's doctor, Maria Collins, checked his vital signs. "He saved us all," Lisa said from the doorway. "He'll live," Dr. Collins replied. "But he needs proper medical care soon." Lisa nodded and returned to the bridge where Joe and the other crew members worked to repair damaged systems. "Status report," she asked. "Communications are back online," Joe said, "but we have no idea where to go. We're in uncharted space." Lisa studied the star maps on the main screen. "We need to find someone who doesn't like the Nilari as much as we don't." As if in answer to her words, the ship's sensors beeped. "Captain, I'm detecting a signal," the communications officer announced. "It's not Nilari. Different frequency pattern entirely." "Can you trace it?" "Yes. It's coming from a small planetary body about 3 hours from our position." Lisa made her decision quickly. "Set course. Let's see who's out there." Back on Earth, the situation had become dire. The Nilari tightened their blockade further, using energy weapons to destroy any object larger than a baseball that reached high altitude. In the command center, Frank and Olivia worked tirelessly to maintain global cooperation. "Brazil is threatening to surrender to the Nilari," Admiral Kelly reported. "Their president thinks it might lead to better treatment. If one nation breaks rank, others will follow," Frank said grimly. "We need to hold the alliance together until the Defiant completes its mission." Olivia looked up from her computer. "I think I found something." She showed Frank a strange pattern in the Nilari communications. "They're sending more messages than usual, and they're talking about something called coalition threats." Frank studied the data. "They think we might find allies out there." "Which means there are allies to find," Olivia concluded. A technician interrupted them. "Sir, we've detected a small Nilari ship landing in northern Canada. It's the first time they've sent anyone to the surface." Frank's expression hardened. "They're getting desperate." "Good. That means they're afraid." The U.S. Defiant approached a small rocky moon orbiting a gas giant. Hidden among the moon's craters was a collection of oddly shaped structures, clearly artificial. "Looks like a trading post," Joe observed. "Or a pirate den," Lisa added. "Either way, it's not Nilari. Take us in slowly." As they approached, a message came through their communication system. A gravelly voice spoke in a language they didn't understand, then switched to broken English. "Earth vessel. You are far from home. Why are you here?" Lisa took a deep breath. "This is Captain Lisa Ward of the Earth ship Defiant. We seek allies against the Nilari Confederation." A long silence followed. Then, "Dock at Bay 3. Come unarmed. We talk." The trading post turned out to be a bustling hub of activity. Aliens of various species moved through corridors and chambers carved into the moon's rock. None of them looked like the Nilari. Lisa and Joe were escorted to a large room where a short, stocky alien waited. Its skin was reddish-orange, and its 4 eyes blinked independently of each other. I am Creel, it said, leader of Kahari Trading Guild. We know humans. We watch your broadcasts for many years. Then you know the Nilari have blockaded our planet, Lisa replied. Creel made a sound like grinding stones, apparently laughter. Nilari blockade many worlds. They fear species who think differently, who innovate. He leaned closer. How did you break through blockade? Human ingenuity, Lisa answered simply. Creel's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Interesting. Most species surrender to Nilari. Except Quarantine. Humans fought back. We always will, Lisa said firmly. Creel studied her for a moment, then nodded. Nilari control space lanes for centuries. They have most advanced technology. But they lack. He searched for the word. Imagination. Will you help us? Lisa asked directly. Kahari are traders, Creel replied. What can humans offer? Lisa thought quickly. New ideas, new ways of solving problems, new markets for your goods, and new allies against the Nilari, Joe added. Creel's eyes narrowed. Dangerous talk, but interesting. He stood. Your engineer needs medical attention. Our doctors will help. Then we talk more about alliance. As they followed Creel through the trading post, Lisa saw dozens of alien species watching them with curiosity. For the first time since leaving Earth, she felt real hope. The Nilari aren't the only power in the galaxy, she whispered to Joe. And I think we just found the resistance. 6 weeks after the U.S. Defiant broke through the blockade, Earth faced its darkest hour. The Nilari had begun targeting communication satellites, cutting off countries from each other. Food shortages led to riots in major cities. 3 nations had already surrendered to the aliens, allowing Nilari observers on their soil in exchange for basic supplies. In the command center, Frank stared at reports of growing unrest. We're running out of time, he told Olivia. People are losing hope. Olivia looked exhausted but determined. I've improved the disruption field technology. If the Defiant returns, we could create larger gaps in the blockade. If they return, Frank said quietly. It's been 6 weeks without a word. Admiral Kelly entered the room. The Chinese are threatening to surrender next. If they do, the alliance collapses. Frank was about to respond when a technician shouted, Sir, we're detecting something at the edge of the solar system. On the main screen, tiny points of light appeared, moving rapidly toward Earth. Frank's heart sank. More Nilari reinforcements. No, sir, the technician replied, confusion in his voice. Different engine signatures, dozens of ships, hundreds. The U.S. Defiant led the massive fleet toward Earth. On the bridge, Lisa Ward looked at the view screen with pride. Behind her ship flew vessels of every shape and size, the combined forces of 7 species who had suffered under Nilari rule. Steve, his hands healed, stood beside her. Never thought we'd come back with an army. Not just an army, Lisa replied. A coalition. Creel, who had become their strongest ally, entered the bridge. Nilari will be surprised, he said with his grinding stone laugh. Surprise is our specialty, Lisa said. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships prepare for battle. Remember the plan. This isn't about destroying the Nilari. It's about breaking their control. On Earth, Frank received the encrypted message from the Defiant and couldn't believe what he was reading. They're back, he announced, and they'd brought friends. Olivia rushed to his side. How many? Over 300 ships, species we've never heard of. Kahari, Voltar, Jex, others, all with a grudge against the Nilari. Admiral Kelly laughed. Leave it to humans to find allies in a galaxy we've never even explored. Frank immediately began issuing orders. Activate all remaining satellites. Prepare the global disruption field. And get me a direct line to the Nilari commander. The Nilari detected the approaching fleet and scrambled to form a defensive position. Their commander appeared on Earth's communication channels. Humans, it said, its tone less confident than before. This resistance is pointless. Even with these dissidents, you cannot defeat our technology. Frank faced the alien calmly. We don't need to defeat you. We just need to show the galaxy that you can be defied. The signal cut off. The battle for Earth had begun. Lisa's fleet attacked from above, while Earth activated its disruption field from below. Caught between two forces, the Nilari blockade began to fracture. The most surprising moment came when dozens of ships within the Nilari fleet suddenly changed course, turning their weapons on their former commanders. Nilari vessels crewed by other subjugated species who had been forced to serve broke free and joined the coalition. From the command center, Frank and Olivia watched in awe as the mighty blockade fell apart section by section. "It's working," Olivia whispered. A final massive explosion lit up space as the Nilari flagship's engines overloaded. The remaining Nilari vessels began to retreat, their perfect formation shattered. 3 days later, in what was once the United Nations building in New York, humans welcomed representatives from 12 alien species. Lisa, Frank, Steve, and Olivia stood together as Admiral Kelly addressed the historic gathering. "Today marks a new chapter for Earth," he said, "and for all species who value freedom and cooperation over control and isolation." Creel stepped forward. "Humans achieved what no species has done before. You broke Nilari power, not with superior technology, but with something they do not understand: courage to defy impossible odds." Frank looked around at the diverse assembly of beings from across the galaxy. "The blockade was meant to keep humanity contained," he said. "Instead, it introduced us to the stars." As the delegates began discussions for a new galactic alliance, with Earth at its center, Frank stepped outside to look at the night sky. The stars no longer represented a barrier but a future filled with possibilities. Humanity had not just broken a blockade. They had changed the course of galactic history.